It can now be said. That was the theme of the week. Things you have known for years, but were called a Nazi or a Putin apologist for saying out loud, are now being admitted in the pages of the New York Times, no less. The Times investigation this week found that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's government had embezzled hundreds of millions of dollars sent to Ukraine from the United States and Europe. The Times reported that the Zelensky government rewrote company charters to limit the government, keeping it in control and allowing hundreds of millions of dollars to be spent without outsiders poking around. Members of Zelensky's inner circle laundered $100 million from the state-owned nuclear power company Energoatom. I am old enough to remember when pointing out that Ukraine is a deeply corrupt country got you slammed as a Putin puppet. For 3 years, asking why the American people should be forking over billions of dollars with zero oversight to fund a war on another continent, when we have our own problems here at home and we could instead be pushing for a negotiated peace, was considered a Kremlin talking point. Even pointing out basic facts that would help end the war, like the fact that Crimea had already been annexed by Russia 8 years before the war began, got you labeled a propagandist for Putin. But now it can be said, like it's the most obvious thing in the world. It wasn't the only one of its kind this week. The Times had another piece entitled "How Biden Ignored Warnings and Lost Americans' Faith on Immigration." The open border that the mainstream liberal media denied even existed for 5 years is now being written up in the New York Times, which found that Biden and his closest advisors repeatedly rebuffed recommendations to address the border crisis, resulting in millions and millions of illegals pouring across the border and turning every major American city into a border town. It can now be said. Of course, we already knew that because we saw it with our own eyes, but that didn't stop elite progressive media and the Democratic Party from gaslighting about it, denying it was happening and smearing anyone who pointed it out as a white supremacist. So why the 180 now? Well, it's simple. Until the Democrats can prove, or at least pretend, that they've moved on from the Biden-era failures, they know they will lose national elections. Hence the piece is blaming Biden. They're a good smokescreen for the fact that the Democrats don't actually have a compelling agenda on immigration, and that most Democrats truly believe that our economy, like the households of rich progressives, requires an indentured servant caste of illegal labor to keep prices down. Unfortunately for them, Americans want a closed border. They believe in hard work and good wages. They're sick of funding other people's fights that have nothing to do with our security and prosperity. They're sick of being fleeced, whether it's by Somalis in Minnesota or Ukrainians in the Zelensky government or millions and millions of illegal migrants who came here and sucked up billions of dollars in social services.